Do you ever feel like time just goes by so fast? And sometimes when you stop and think about and reflect on memories from the past, or maybe you look at old photos of your kids, or maybe when you were younger, and you stop and think to yourself, wow, how did time go by so fast? And I feel like I wasn't fully present. How do I become more present? I can't stop time, but can I slow it down a little bit? So, one of the things that I found to slow down time is to get into creativity, do something creative. So, in today's video, we're going to talk about how creativity makes you more mindful, makes you more present without having to meditate. So, one of the first things that being creative or doing something creative does for you, one of the benefits is it puts you into a flow state where you're just in the zone. You're not thinking about anything else. You're not concerned about something. You're just fully present in the moment. I'm going to read to you a study that was done in 2024, and I'll cite it here in the video, that talks about utilizing creativity, finding that during creative activities, and I'm going to read this study to you right now. During creative activities, individuals experience a state of effortlessness and enjoyable productivity. So when you're in that flow state, you can actually be productive when you're just enjoying yourself, which I think is pretty cool. That's often referred to as being in the zone. This is actually what I personally experience quite significantly. And I'm kind of curious to know, what are some of the things for you? What are the different creative activities that you've tried or you've done before, or that you currently enjoy that makes you lose track of time? One of the biggest ones for me is nature photography. So when I get out in nature, sometimes I'll even just silence my phone or just put it on do not disturb, and I will lose track of time. 3 hours will go by and I don't even bat an eye until I have to use the bathroom or something like that. I'm like, oh, I have to pee. And then I realize, wow, I've been out here for 3 hours. That for me is so calming to my nervous system. When I take my camera out and maybe I'm just watching some ducks or birds in the water floundering around, and I'm just observing and just noticing. So, what are the activities for you that you lose track of time? Here's another example of another benefit of creativity. One of the other things that creativity does is it engages your senses, which gives you a sense of groundedness. So, what do I mean by engage your senses? So, engaging your sense of sight, for example, when I'm doing photography, I'm using a lot of, visual cues, and I'm also listening and I'm smelling when I'm out in nature. All of these different senses are lighting up. If you're painting, maybe you're, really attuned to the colors and the textures, maybe even the smells. If you're using oil paints or acrylics or whatever, you're noticing all these different elements, the brush stroke, all of those different things. If you're playing an instrument, maybe you're really, let's say you're playing the guitar, you're feeling the strings on your fingers, you're listening to the sound. There's so many different senses that are highly attuned. When we're focused on something creative, usually it's very difficult for our brains to be focused on the worries of tomorrow. And so that's why finding something that's going to get you in the zone is so healthy for your nervous system. And it will help you to feel like time is going more slowly versus time is just flying by, and you didn't actually feel like you're fully present for life. So that's the second thing. The third thing that it does, and I'm just referring to my notes over here, is it helps to reduce stress. So often, what is actually the things that stress you out? Most oftentimes, it is the things that are cluttering your mind, whether it's distraction or actual, really bothersome things that are happening in your world. Perhaps you lost your job recently and you're kind of stressing out about, where is the money going to come from for your rent for next month, and that can keep you up at night and just be all consuming like a fire. If you can take a break, even if you just set a timer for 30 minutes or 45 minutes, that worry about finding a job is actually not going to worrying about, not having a job right now or trying to find a job is not going anywhere. Being creative, doing something creative, and like I said, setting a timer for 30 to 45 minutes. You're not doing this forever. You're not neglecting your responsibilities of job searching, but you're giving yourself some bandwidth, a break for your nervous system. And chances are, when you take a break from the worries and the stresses of the world, it will enhance creative ideas on who to call, to make some, network connections about possible jobs, where to search. Like all of these things generally will start flooding in when we're in that state, we're in the zone. Going for a walk in nature is one of my personal favorites as well, particularly if I'm not listening to something that's distracting me. So if I'm choosing intentionally not to listen to a podcast, not to have my phone on, not to be texting or something like that, my phone is off, it's in my pocket. I'm actually just watching, looking around as I'm walking through nature, observing it, feeling the temperature, feeling the sun on my skin, smelling the beautiful flowers that just bloomed in the spring, whatever it is, hearing the sound of the water flowing in the river. All of those things help to keep you grounded and attune your senses to your surroundings and give yourself, like I said, a break. Lastly, I think this is another thing that's really interesting about creativity is it can really provide a really healthy outlet for emotional expression. So here's another example of being creative. It could be creative writing or just brain dumping or free writing where you're just not even thinking strategically about putting a specific paragraph together. You're just writing as everything comes to your mind. You just free write. That can be a really great form of getting your emotions out as well. For me personally, when I'm out doing photography, it's interesting how I can feel a certain type of emotion in the various images that I capture. And so it's almost as if I'm witnessing nature being in a certain mood or a certain emotional state. Now, I know I'm not saying that nature is evoking emotions per se, but there's an element to that. And so when I'm capturing that on camera, or maybe even video as well, videography is another really great outlet. But if I'm capturing that, it's a form of emotional expression, or at least it can be. So I'm going to give you a list of a handful of things that you can do, creative things. I mentioned photography, I mentioned videography, arts and crafts. So anything crafty, painting, drawing, collage, jewelry making. That's another thing I really enjoy is making jewelry, cutting up leather and, making jewelry. Baking is another thing that I really enjoy. Baking sourdough has been my craze for the last 2 years. And now I'm really getting into freshly milled flour and learning how to use freshly milled flour, which is so much healthier than store-bought all-purpose flour. Just learning how to bake, healthier versions of different items, whether it's breads or cookies or whatever. So that's something I'm also really enjoying. Playing an instrument, that's another really great one. So I'm curious, what are some of the things that you do to keep yourself in the zone, in that creative space? And I'm also curious to know, how does that make you feel? For me, I feel like I just did an hour of yoga or something like that. In terms of not necessarily the physical pieces of moving my body during a yoga class, but the mind, like how my mind feels. It just feels more empty. It feels more calm. It feels more present when I'm doing something creative. So I hope that's helpful. And again, you don't necessarily have to meditate in order to reap the benefits of being present. And creativity doing something creative is one of the best things you can do. Some of the things that my clients really enjoy, they've been really enjoying, what they've really been enjoying lately is doing paint by number, where you can purchase a canvas. There's a lot of paint by number projects out there, and it sends you, like if I shop for this on Amazon, for example, I pick the picture that I want to paint and they send it to me, and the whole beautiful picture is sketched out, not painted yet, it's just kind of sketched. And then there are specific colors that are numbered, and then you have paints, and you use a certain paint for the numbers and paint by number. And after, however long it takes for you to paint this canvas, you have this beautiful image at the end that you can enjoy and feel proud of. But that process of just being in the present, being focused on, okay, what color do I need for this? Okay, this is number 41. What paint color is number 41? Okay, I'm going to dip my paintbrush in that color and I'm going to paint just these numbers 41, and voila, you have a beautiful painting at the end. Another thing that a lot of my clients have been enjoying is diamond painting, which is those little gemstones, and using the gemstones to paint a really beautiful picture. Using coloring mandalas, which is like a coloring book for adults, with this beautiful symmetrical mandalas, or any kind of adult coloring book as well. That's been something that's been really helpful and beneficial. A lot of my clients have been saying that that's been kind of just a calming thing for them. I also love to crochet, and I'm going to tell you the quick story on that. I learned to crochet in my early 20s. I was working in a group home at the time. I was working in a group home with a bunch of girls that were chemically addicted to some type of drug. And they were also, so they're basically experiencing what's called post-acute withdrawal symptoms of coming off of either drugs or alcohol. And so, oftentimes what comes with that is just needing to do something. They needed to fidget, or they needed to just be preoccupied because their body was detoxing or going through that detoxification state. And so there was a room full of these teenage girls that were all crocheting. And I found it to be a bit humorous and kind of funny. And so I said to them, I was like, you girls look like a bunch of old ladies. And I was just joking with them. And they said, Lori, you have no idea what you're missing. You got to learn how to crochet. You're going to be so addicted. And so I learned how to crochet, and they were right. It is so meditative. When I'm crocheting, like every time the crochet hook goes into the yarn and I do a loop and then another loop and then another loop, that's all you're focused on. It is so calming. So anyway, the sky is the limit in terms of creativity. So leave your creative ideas below, what has been calming for you and how it's helped you. So I hope this video is helpful. I look forward to seeing you on the next video.